discussions about the speed on this road for a period of time, as I understand it, but nobody ever came to you and said, maybe we ought to look into putting traffic calming devices on this road?
That's correct.
Okay. I forget where we were. Second row? Okay.
Harold Hupfeld, Hupfeldt. I live on Old Buck Lane, on the corner of Buck and Old Buck. And I think that everyone would agree.
I don't mean to interrupt, but are you a Haverford Township resident?
Need an address.
So you're allowing the Lower Merion people who you want?
Okay, let's
Just
just,
checking here,
hold on,
making sure,
hold on.
question.
Let's
Talking about people who had specific experiences.
okay.
so you
People should be told.
Wait a minute. Hang on one second. Everybody stop for 1 second. Let me get your address first, okay?
Yeah, we need the address.
38 Buck Lane, Haverford, PA.
Okay. And then, just hang on for 1 second. And you have an objection to this witness?
Objection, yes.
Okay. You want to state your objection?
Because she's testifying as to, I believe, I don't know what,
How can you
but I
say I
believe she was
testified if I
standing.
haven't
Right.
spoken?
Right. now-
Could I ask
Okay.
how,
All right, now, just stop. Just stop. We have to do it's a hearing. So go ahead. You state your objection, please.
My objection is that she does not have standing because she is not a resident
Okay.
of Haverford Township.
Okay, I understand your objection, and we'll note that objection. However, I don't, the question as to standing really is not something that we're addressing right now. It's just the public comment portion, so we would allow her
I
to.
understand.
Okay,
There's
but,
potential.
right, I understand. So we'll note your objection. Go ahead, you can testify.
Back to what I was trying to say. I live on Buck and Old Buck, and I think that everyone, and me included, thinks that there's a difficult curve there. However, I think that some of the solutions drive more traffic on Old Buck Lane and on Buck, who have serious, serious problems. Amanda has mentioned that, and a lot of other folks that have lived in the community at large. So you have some experience from some other humps or bumps, whatever you want to call them. It drives people away from that particular road onto an adjacent road, which means Old Buck, which does have parking. And I've never measured it, but it's a narrow road also. I mean, we've all experienced that. So they have 13 children. I don't know what the count is. We have just as many children on Old Buck. And the safety concerns are the same. So I just would like consideration that I'm nervous that if it's a private lane, there's going to be a cul-de-sac, there's going to be signs that say do not enter. People are going to come off Lancaster Avenue, and their normal traffic pattern is to swing to the right and take Panmure towards Buck Lane, are going to go, and not everyone, as a police officer will tell us, will listen to that private lane, but many will, and they're going to drive that traffic right down Old Buck Lane. And then it's very difficult. We don't have a stop sign in Old Buck.
right, you
And
should.
We should, but we don't. And there was an issue there because there's so many feet aren't from one, how many feet? So
Right.
that got put down several years ago when we tried to do that. So now you're driving traffic down Old Buck with no stop sign, no four-way, causing that to be crowded and challenged. Because who's the right-of-way? Then people are like, that's like the wild, wild west. Who's more aggressive is going to take the turn, right or left.
Right.
So I agree with safety, and I'd love there to be, I actually think if Lower Merion late in the game, and you can criticize them if they're late in the game, I understand that. But if they're willing to do one way and we can go do one way the other way, maybe that's the solution. But privatizing it brings on so many other issues. And I'm nervous about that. And I'm nervous for this side of Old Buck Lane. So,
It is one of the things I discussed with Commissioner Zeloff and asked him to discuss with Lower Merion would be putting a stop sign at Old Buck because they were the ones who stopped it. I tried to get it in 7 years ago when I get in.
we lost a dog.
Right, you lost a dog, and I remember you losing your dog.
We asked you to do a traffic study on Buck Lane, and you want to talk about a traffic study. That
Right.
was,
Well, yeah, I did ask, and Scott did say to me that he would make sure that if they went along with a one-way coupling, he'd get a stop sign in there as well.
Right.
So-
So I would just, and you know what, it is a community, we all live together, we want to be happy together, but I don't think the solution is to create something that helps the smaller create more trauma, especially at a corner that's not been dealt with no stop sign. So then that corner becomes the wild, wild west with all the children at Haverford. So,
I have a
Okay.
You testified, you made quite a few statements about the impact that there would be on traffic surrounding the area of Panmure Road where people were not driving through that as much. Did you have a traffic study conducted that gave you those results?
I'm using the experience of this group that's earlier mentioned, that they had humps put in somewhere, or bumps, whatever they were, and that there was increase.
People avoid them.
Scott mentioned that there was additional traffic on the abutting roads.
You heard the officer testify that without a traffic study, he could not determine whether there,
So he had a document that said there was increased volume on another road. Did you not say that?
but not on Panmure. You didn't
Okay.
study
He
on
said he
Panmure.
did
No, we've
before and
not.
after on Upland, and it showed
been
that
doing
there was
this
more
for
traffic on the other roads. That's what he's talking about.
Okay, all right. Let's bring us back now again, okay? You're done with your questions? You have to stay till, ma'am, I'm sorry. Just stay till the questions are done, okay? And, Ms. Edwards, do you have any other questions?
How about the Haverford Township Police?
Well, let's just hold on for a second. I'll give you a chance to talk, but I
Like
just want
this-
to know if there's any more questions.
But does Lower Merion have a say on this or not?
Wait, hang on.
The traffic study?
We did a traffic study on Buck Lane because we did.
Please, let's just have the witness talk, okay? And the attorney questioning right now, okay? I know, I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm just hearing people come in.
All I'm trying to do is understand, because you made a lot of statements about impact of traffic, but I haven't seen a study that it was based upon.
You didn't
So-
present a study, and
No,
I
I'm
haven't.
asking you. Are you
I'm-
basing it on a study?
Well, all I'm telling you is if I'm a person and I come down the Lexus and I see a sign that says private lane, do not enter, I'm gonna go down Old Buck Lane. I'm telling you what I would personally do.
Have you heard anybody testify that that sign is gonna be put up?
I was at a meeting in our
No, no.
our community. We had a community meeting with Mr. Williams and very many of this group that are here today. And there are different conversations, and yes, it was discussed that there would be signage put up. That was said in the meeting.
Signage is not the specific signage, and that is not something that has been.
It was never answered by
Requested today.
Mr. Williams. Twice I asked in the meeting what the signage particularly would say, and I was never given an answer. I also asked how many speed humps would be put in, and that was never answered.
So we're at a very preliminary stage right now, where we're getting the commissioners to look at the question of whether the road currently exists as a private road. And if there is a question about whether or not it's a private road, we also offered the vacation. But actually, the documents that we submitted to the commissioners are evidence that the road actually today is a private road. So the question that I'm asking you is simply about the safety issue and the basis for your testimony about the changes that will occur if there are traffic calming techniques put into place on this road.
Well, I'm using the experience of this group. They said if humps get put in, the traffic is driven elsewhere. If it says private
Well,
lane,
which group are you talking about?
the commissioners mentioned that this
I-
evening.
I'm sorry, I believe Officer Scott said on Upland Road,
Yeah,
once
right.
we did traffic studies, and Upland Road is in my ward, once we did traffic studies on the adjacent streets, the numbers moved from Upland to those other streets. I believe that's what she's talking about.
There was never a
So if you,
corresponding study on Panmure to say that would be the case.
no, but you asked what she's basing her testimony on would be that it would make logical sense that if this study said the area around there
She's reaching, yes.
moved, all the traffic moved, then it would make
And I-
sense that it would move onto Old Buck.
And I can
because that
tell
would be
you,
the
we're
next-
writing tickets for people cutting through St. John Newman because they try to avoid the speed humps. So I can tell you, they do.
But I mean, I think.
You want to get your question answered, is what I understand, right? Was there a study done on Panmure, and you say, no, there's no study, right, that you know of? Okay, all right, I think we have everything.
To the question of you're at the preliminary, I don't feel you're at the preliminary. We're here tonight that you want to vacate and make it a private road with a 100-year-old document. So I don't feel like you're at the beginning of talking about this. I think you're at the end of trying to talk about this. That's my feeling. I don't have facts, that's how I feel about it. So,
Okay, thank you.
Well, I got one. Can I ask you a question, Carol?
yes,
Now, you live in the neighborhood, am I right?
correct, and I've lived there for 17 years.
What side of the street are you on, Lower Merion or Haverford? Just so
Lower
I know.
Merion.
You're on Lower Merion side, okay. But you're basically talking about the neighborhood in a whole.
Community at large.
Okay.
As a-
So I guess my question would be, if you, Madam Solicitor, if you want her testimony stricken, do you want Jane Williams' testimony stricken to play fair because she's from Gladwin?
Well, she was our witness.
Yes.
This is somebody standing.
Exactly.
Thank you for your answer, I understand.
What I'm saying-
I got it, I got
Saying all
it.
night.
No, what I want to clarify that. She's not, those people were not applicants. They were not parties before the commission. So these people who are standing up and being sworn and testifying on their own behalf have the opportunity to become parties. And that is what I am objecting to, that they not be permitted to be parties before this commission, which is the commission, Board of Commissioners of Haverford Township. A witness is completely separate, but because they're coming up on their own, they're not coming up as a witness of a party.
Right.
Jim, is there any precedent as to us ever letting Laura Merion join in on something when it was on a border?
Well, I don't know about that, but.
Yeah, you do. The billboards.
Yeah, there
The
is.
billboards,
but-
and we've
yeah.
joined in, and we've tried to do it, whether they give me the same respect or not, it's irregardless. They don't come to me when they're building up big car garages. I've always tried to work with the other commissioners who adjoin my ward, because I think it's fair, because it affects them.
Well,
okay,
So
well,
I think
but let
that
me-
personally, I think they do have standing.
Yeah, let me see if I could just cut this all short, okay? We're not making determinations now as to who's a party. I understand your objection. Your objection is noted. If the issue comes up, that's certainly something you preserve for any future appeals or anything, okay? But what we do want to do is have the public comment section here and allow anybody who took this much time to come out to comment, so, all right? But the objection is noted. Okay.
I do.
And state your full name, please.
My name is Dr. Ellen DeLay, and I live on 730 Camden Road.
And spell your last name.
D as in David, E-L-E-A. And, I just find all this passion for community traffic calming to be, especially from the Lower Merion people, to be a little day late and dollar short. Like, where was this passion when they were building that Lexus garage with the entrance opening up onto Old Buck? Well, of course, they didn't care because it just dumps right down our road. So I think, maybe people might want to direct their passion as a community to addressing that issue in the name of traffic calming as well.
Okay, thank you.
And we're consulting about that.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Dr. John Devine.
Okay, and you're still sworn, okay?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Carol. I'll say Carol has become a quick, fast friend of our families, and we do care very deeply about what happens to Old Buck for two reasons. One is that we've quickly made friends with the people on Old Buck, and I want them to be safe. As I said, my wife's a pediatric, or as she said, she's a pediatric emergency medicine physician, and I'm a physician. We want health and welfare for the community. We would also like to note that we, the petitioners, make up approximately 40% of the population of Old Buck. I don't know that that's clear to everyone, that the front of our properties is on Panmure, the back of our properties is on Old Buck. And we very much consider ourselves residents of Old Buck and neighbors of very sweet people like Carol Hupfeld. So we do respect their views. We feel like the The issue, though, is not so much whether or not whether or not recognizing the private property laws, what impact that has in other places. We would like to, if it has an impact, we would like to address that impact. But we don't believe that you recognize private property law based on what the impact is on other people. It either is or is not our private road. But I just want to make that sure we do care, and we are residents of Old Buck, and we care very deeply what happens to Old Buck.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the second row? We're done the second row, third row? Yes, sir.
Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your full name, please.
John Lynch, Lynch. Live on 527 Old Buck Road. Marion side.
And you have the same objection? Yep. When you can have that objection to anybody else from Lower Merion, okay?
And I can attest to the traffic in the area, and that the majority of the traffic in the morning are coming from Lancaster Avenue and coming across. The majority make the right turn onto Panmure, and in the afternoon, the reverse happens. The majority of traffic makes that left, and hardly anyone makes a right. It's a blind turn to the right. You really got to stick out to see anything, and nobody really does it. Secondarily, so if you put any kind of speed bumps or any other kind of calming devices or signs at the base of Panmure and Old Buck, people would have no other choice than to go straight down Buck Lane. On Buck Lane, which is different than Panmure, in that it has parking on the right-hand side or on the Lower Merion side of Buck Lane. You may refer to it as County Line Road in Haverford, I believe. There's Buck Lane and there's Old Buck Lane. Old Buck Lane runs somewhat parallel to Panmure, except where it turns at the curve that's been spoken about.
And it is the county line.
It is the county line, yeah. Right, and then secondarily, my background, currently I work for PennDOT in traffic control. I'm a traffic control specialist. I've been working with cars and identifying cars and all kinds of traffic devices for a very long time, in the neighborhood of 15 years or more. There are various types of traffic studies that you have to do in order to change signal timing. Put in signals, put in stop signs, change anything. You have to do a traffic study, and a very well run. There are different technologies you could entertain to make any kind of safety on Panmure Road, such as you could draw a line down the middle of the road. You can do similar to the red light enforcement technology. At this point in time, optical character recognition of license plate is a mature technology. You could do that on this road. Officer Scott could attest to, it's not very expensive to do speed monitoring. And tie those two things together you get some indication. Also at PennDOT, we are using now Bluetooth readers and EasyPass tags to ascertain vehicles for timing purposes. We put up on the signs to tell you how long it's going to take to get somewhere. You could do similar things that in this traffic study in this neighborhood, you would have to run it for a year to see the seasonal aspects of the schools. There are two schools that abut this Panmure question. That is the Haverford Friends School and the Haverford School. Additionally, the Mother of Good Counsel school building has been taken over by a college, and there's people from there also. And I'm not sure how seasonal that is, but you would have to in order to get the true picture of the impact of doing anything with this road.
Okay, thank you. Any questions there? No, we can't really get into everybody asking questions. We'll never get finished. Ms. Edwards, do you have any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Next row.
full name is Audrey Bird Clothier. First name Audrey, last name B as in boy, R-G, and Clothier, Lothier. I live at 510 Railroad Avenue, Haverford Township. I wholeheartedly endorse anything we can do to make the entire neighborhood safer. We have a terrible traffic problem. I would really appreciate seeing a study of Railroad, College, Buck, and Canyon. I have a child in a wheelchair. He cannot go on the sidewalks on Railroad because people fly down that road.
There aren't any sidewalks, actually, are there? Are there? Are there? On Railroad? Are there in that part?
Shoveled those
Okay,
sidewalks.
okay. All right. I wasn't sure if there were. Okay.
People fly. I walk my kids to the bus stop in the morning at Railroad and Millbrook. People fly through that stop sign at 7 o'clock in the morning. It is traffic not just for Haverford School. It is traffic for Bryn Mawr Hospital. The nurses go by at all hours in the morning and clearly much faster. Buck Lane near Haverford Friends has a speed limit of 15 miles an hour. How many times have I been run over with my dogs by students, by people driving like maniacs? Clearly, Panmure is the problem. I will attest to it being a very blind curve, but I would really strongly encourage broader study.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Edwards? Okay. We're finished that row and then next row?
Woman in the corner
Okay,
over there,
all
if
right,
you'd like to-
sorry.
Me? I'm all over this.
State your full name, please.
Ellen Evans, Evans. I'm a resident of Buck Lane, 836 Buck Lane. I've been there for 17 years, and for 9 years before that, I was at 520 Panmure Road. And I'd just like to reiterate that I believe there is a huge traffic issue in the general community, and that just I personally never go more than 20 miles an hour on your block of Panmure, so I can state for the fact that not everybody breaks the law on that road. And I also cycle and run a lot, so I can also state that it is dangerous to walk on Panmure, but also on Buck Lane. As a resident of Buck Lane, I would say that people go literally twice as fast on Buck Lane as they do on Panmure because of the curve. So I would strongly urge you, before making any decision about what happens on this one little block of Panmure, consider what's happening in the broader community. Do the traffic study that Audrey and others have suggested that would include Buck, Railroad, Panmure, and Old Buck before making any kind of determination of what's in the best interest of the whole community, because we all have children in that community. We're all subject to the same speeding. We're all wanting to avoid that, and that it doesn't seem that we should be making any kind of decisions or actions on not even a full block. They're proposing a portion of a block. I'm not sure how you're going to, by the way, plow half a block and then stop. The practicalities of vacating only a portion of a block seems kind of, well, it seems impractical. So again, I would just urge you not to make any kind of final decisions about vacating or almost 100 years of precedent set for that block of Panmure being a public road seems to also be something that should be weighed as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody else in that row? Last row?
I'm already sworn in, but
Okay.
Your name?
Michael Morcell, M-O-R-S-E-L-L. I think there's two speed issues here. There's speed of the cars and speed to get something done. So I think if privacy law is the fastest way to get something done on Panmure, I truly believe if the Old Buck residents, of which we use 80% backyard on Old Buck versus 20% front yard, probably 50-50 driveways, I believe privatizing Panmure Road gets things done quicker on Old Buck for both my family, Carol's family, Donald, and also the residents on Buck Lane. This is just my opinion. I think it's speed of cars and speed to get something done, and recognizing the privacy law will make all three happen quicker. It's all about the children.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, sir.
Paul Rogers, I live at 701 Panmure Road, Haverford, PA 190-701 Panmure. And I know time is an excellent thing you brought up, Mike. I think I've got 4 points I want to make. Actually, if you don't know, after 2 years, it seems like a long time, but I actually want to thank Haverford Township. Sergeant Scott, Mr. Highland, I know you've been working on Manager Widdop, I know you have, because we've been here to meet you several times. In fact, I want to point out what I think is a misunderstanding. The reason there isn't a traffic study, because we all agreed that if you do it in the summer after we asked for it, it wouldn't be representative. But I think 2006 clearly doesn't mean a thing. Wilkie wasn't what it is today. Wilkie didn't build is it 200 car garage, which is going to open shortly?
Yeah.
And they hustle Caricom cars over every single day. If you don't know, we can't modify Wilkie to behave. We try. Everybody tries and speaks to them. You can speak to the owners, you can speak to the managers, you can speak to the drivers. But the people that they can't control are their customers. They'll drive wherever they want to, the fastest way possible. So that clearly is something you guys can't control now that Lower Merion has a new building. Using your public road, that's a parking lot, because they do every day. It's their parking lot, and they look at you as you drive by saying, why are you in our parking lot? They will continue to do that. The other traffic generators are clearly the schools. We know that. So usually schools means children. So there's children being dropped off. So if we are happy to have speed, which you've all recognized, everyone here recognizes that it's dangerous. If you want speed in that area, whether it be 535 a day average or 1,000, I think it's pointless. I think it's dangerous. If there are guidelines and you can do some kind of speed humps, by all means do them today, or experiment or explore what you can do. I did receive a phone call from Commissioner Zeloff today, and I do want to tell you that Bob Duncan, and if you don't know who Bob Duncan is, he is for this and going to work hard to change the one-way couplet. So I think if we can encourage the township to work with Lower Merion, I'd appreciate that. Because I've been working on this for 30 months after we buried your dog. We saw 2 kids hit by cars, fortunately they weren't hit. So the accident number that you have, if it's 2, but someone's dead, it doesn't matter if it's 1. We don't want another of those. Nobody does. On Buck Lane, College, Oakley, you name the street. This is all it says, gives you 50 years of experience. We know it's bad. Commission a study for the entire neighborhood, that's fine. But if you guys want your streets to be better, go get a petition signed by every neighbor, because they did. Every neighbor signed it, who's caring and wants to change it on their street, and they're okay with it. In fact, we didn't say, let's do it this way. Dr. Williams did so much research, it's ridiculous. And the only reason we're here today is because we're not getting any answers. Got none. So if Lower Merion wants to help, whatever you can do to make them move forward, please do. Would you please talk to Sergeant Sullivan, who told me, quote unquote, if we close either of these roads, it might put more traffic on Lancaster Avenue. Why would we do that? Because it's a state highway, that's why. And they shouldn't be in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone, oh, sorry. Okay.
We're low on battery.
Nothing was heard by Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
No, I was talking to James.
No, yeah.
We all right? Is that anyone, is that it? Anyone in that last row still? One more?
I told
2
my
more?
kids I wouldn't be
Okay.
home till 11,
Okay.
so.
Just say this is the last two. 9:30?
Yeah, 9:30.
It looks like 10.
Hold on a second, hold on.
I do.
Is he ready? Hold on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Are you okay? Yeah.
Okay, good, we're ready, go ahead.
Charles Walsh. W-A-L-S-H. I'm a resident of Lower Merion, and I'm
Same objection,
also
we
the
have it.
manager of the Friends Meeting House in Haverford on Buck Lane. Okay. I wanted to state that Tenmore Road, where I live, which bifurcates Old Buck Lane just north of Panmure, is a private street in Lower Merion. We went through a lot of the issues of privatization. I mean, the privatization was done a long time ago, but when we bought the house in 2005, we and some of our neighbors discovered that, you know, we were paying for the snowplows and the maintenance. We paved the road and all of that again to take out the humps so that the snowplows could go. And in that process, we had to appeal to the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners, which was a process that took us a couple of years. We had to get all the adjacent owners of properties on Buck Lane and elsewhere to agree. And in fact, it was agreed by the Board of Commissioners in Lower Merion that they would then take over the maintenance of the street. So we have some experience with that. What I wanted to address to you is the traffic problems. I completely agree with my friends and neighbors on Panmure that that is a nightmare waiting to happen, that curve. I walk my dog there. I can't say my dog doesn't go over 25 miles an hour, but I don't think he does. But certainly the cars do, and they're dangerous. And if I owned children on that street, I would move heaven and earth to change it. I think that's in your laps, ladies and gentlemen, as the Board of Commissioners here, to do what's necessary. I also would like to second the motion of Audrey and others who have suggested that you need an overall traffic pattern study, because Buck Lane, if you know the way Buck Lane turns off Lancaster, it is about I guess a 70-degree or whatever degree, however you want to look at it. It's not a 90-degree turn, so you have a very awkward turning space there. That is the main carrier between Lancaster and Haverford roads. And all of the neighborhood that we all live in is dependent on the traffic that use that main Buck Road. So Panmure becomes the easy avenue that people cut off that Buck Lane turn, which PennDOT will not, up to this moment, allow us to put a traffic light in. They might if both Lower Merion and Haverford Township pushed on that. But I'll leave that up to you.
We've tried.
Well,
Yeah.
how many kids do you have to kill to get there?
That's basically what we were told.
Right. Anyway, you need to do an overall study of the traffic between Buck, College, and Panmure and Lancaster. That Quaker Quarter, what used to be the Quaker Quarter, which once upon a time was one large plot of land.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there's one more. There's two more, okay.
Tell the state they're the ones not putting up the traffic.
Are you going to use that exhibit? Is that an exhibit you have?
Talk to your state representative.
Okay, maybe you just show Ms. Edwards, has she seen it yet?
Nancy Warren, W-A-R-R-E-N.
Sorry, address?
824 Buck Lane. So,
At Haverford or Lower Merion?
Haverford.
Okay.
Haverford Township?
Yes.
Okay. Just clarifying.
sorry?
I'm sorry, I was just clarifying that you lived in Haverford Township and not in Haverford, Lower Merion.
So I've lived in the neighborhood for 25 years and have seen there is a nightmare waiting to happen. One of my best friends that I raised kids with lived in one of the houses there, so I've spent a lot of time there. It isn't really fair to say that the people who live on Panmure also care equally about Old Buck, because they have driveways that empty on Panmure and Old Buck. So if there's more traffic on Old Buck, they can still use Panmure. I also wanted to say that there are no roads in our neighborhood that are safe, and none of our children can play on the roads. it's a, you know, it's just, you can't. I mean, I had 4 kids, 5 kids, we just, you know, it's like living in the city, you can't do it. So we just want to be safe. One of the things that I did when my kids were little and Lexus.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I think they're not getting you on the microphone, okay? I'm sorry, so.
When Lexus first came and they were filling up their cars at the end of Buck Lane and they were going very fast past our house, I called them and I asked them if they would please slow down. And then I called them again and said, will you please slow down? And then I called them and I said, I'm putting this in writing. You have been warned that somebody's going to get hurt. If somebody's going to get hurt, you will be liable because you have been warned. And it did. It stopped. I mean, they got much better. So even if we can't do, you know, concrete measures immediately, we can ask Lexus to stop putting the cars on Old Buck. We can ask Lexus to slow down. We can contact the head of Haverford School and tell their mothers, as much as their kids, to slow down on our roads. I mean, there are medium measures that we can take, you know, while we're trying to solve these other problems. The other thing is, we had a meeting, Ken and I had a meeting at our house the other night, and I made a map. And there are issues all over the neighborhood, and I just sort of, you know, put blue dots where there are some. The Lexus dealers, there's parking on 30 so that you can't pull out of Panmure and to the right. That parking needs to be moved. There's an AA meeting here, so there are people hanging out outside. That's more people. The kids from Haverford College also walk through Panmure, so that's another school. There's Haverford Estates, so we have old people driving in there to see their older friends, and Mainline Art Center. There's the signs that we do have are too obscure. You know, the stop signs need to be made bigger or more visible. Buck Lane is, when I called when my kids were little and asked the police if they would stop people from going so fast, what the response I got was that 15 miles an hour is not enforceable. So they couldn't enforce any speed limit. And, you know, I don't know what that's about, but it certainly doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And the other thing is the Haverford school kids walk down Buck Lane and go to the playing fields, which I mean, we have lines of children walking down Buck Lane with no sidewalks, and there's plenty of room to put sidewalks on Buck Lane. So I'm just saying there are a lot of different answers that we could do, and thank you for the work that you do and taking the time tonight.
Okay. Do you want us to consider that? Do you want to leave that with us?
If you want to.
If you would like us to, we will.
What I think is that part of the neighborhood's problem with all this is we didn't know anything about any of this until a week ago. It wasn't an open process.
Okay, well, let me just get your last name again, please.
Warren.
Warren, okay, so
Yeah.
we'll mark this exhibit as Warren number 1, okay?
And my point here is that the whole neighborhood should be given a chance to come in and say, we think these are problems for us, and address everybody's issues. That's it. Okay?
Very good, thank you.
I do. Kenneth Warren. I live at 824 Buck Lane. I am Nancy's husband and therefore fully endorse everything that Nancy said. Now I can go home tonight and sleep peacefully. I'm also an environmental lawyer. Lawyers aren't known for their brevity, so I made some notes to try to keep this short, particularly since I thought it might be late at night when we're doing this, and it is getting late for you and for everybody in the audience. As Nancy mentioned, we received notice of this petition about a week ago. We got something in the mail from the township. And Nancy and I then decided to call a meeting of as many community members as we could in our house, because we feel that these kinds of traffic issues are ones that concern the entire community and really should be resolved as much as possible by consensus of the community members. We had 30 or so people at our house, and we did accomplish a couple of things. First, we ended very civilly, and that, to tell you the truth, was my first priority, because as community members, we're all going to have to live together for a long time, and civility is extremely important. The second is we were able to develop consensus on some things, not on the ultimate question of whether the petition should be granted, but on some of the things that you've heard today. You have heard that speeding and safety are a big problem in the entire community. They are. It's true on Panmure, and it's true throughout the community. The notion that we should do a traffic study of the community was universally supported by everybody, because as you've heard by some of the examinations here, the question arises, did you do a traffic study? And the answer is, we should do a traffic study and try to come up with a solution that makes sense. We want to slow traffic on Panmure. There is a safety problem there. I appreciate how my Panmure friends are worried about their children. As Nancy said, we worried about our children on Buck Lane, so we know what it's like. Panmure residents told us that they wanted speed bumps, but they were concerned about a township ordinance that supposedly created a problem for it. So let me just put on my lawyer's hat for a second here. It says the purpose of this chapter is to establish guidelines, and so I don't think that you're necessarily bound by any of the criteria, but let's talk about criteria number N, other traffic calming measures, notwithstanding whether or not a petition has been submitted under section 169(4)B. Nothing herein shall limit the township's right to unilaterally consider and install any traffic calming measures whatsoever, including but not limited to speed humps, bulb outs, chicanes, raised crosswalks, etc., as it may deem necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of a specific neighborhood or the public in general. It goes on to say this section shall apply to any street within the township, especially streets where the township determines there is a high concentration of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, such as those near schools, parks and recreation areas, churches, and business districts. So I think that it is totally
Would you just mind, for the record, telling us what that ordinance is? You said the ordinance, you didn't tell us.
Yes, it is chapter 169 from the township ordinance number 2451.
Thank you.
It's the township ordinance.
Right.
And so I would encourage you, in the short run, to deal with the problem on Panmure by putting in the speed bumps that my friends in Panmure want, because I can't think it's going to harm anything. And if it does, we'll deal with it when the traffic study is complete, but I would implore you to come up with a traffic study. Some facts. Panmure is shown on the maps on the township website going back to the 1920s. It's an established street that was there. The road is used by the public. You've heard that amply this evening. People have been driving and walking on it for decades, including myself, although not for decades, but certainly for many years. Restricting traffic on Panmure will increase traffic on Old Buck. Old Buck is a serious problem, so we have to be really careful about what we do on Panmure. And to tell you the truth, I have confidence that this board will come up with the right traffic calming solutions as opposed to leaving it only to private residents. I would hope that you would do that in full consultation with all the members of the community, but I do think it's important that we consider the effects of what we do on one road on other roads. And if you look at the history of Panmure, how long it's been used as a public road, how long it's been plowed by the township, how long there have been utilities buried under the road, and it's certainly paved, and we haven't heard that the private residents paved it. I would say if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. It's probably a public road. There is something called the PennDOT Traffic Calming Handbook. You're all probably familiar with it. It has a plethora of different possible solutions. It may be that speed humps are the right solution, and as I said, if that's what the people on Panmure want, I mean, I personally have no problems with speed humps, but there are other opportunities. There are chicanes, which are basically obstacles that make a driver weave in and out of them, obviously slowing down traffic. There are diverters, there are islands, there are raised crosswalks. If there's a big problem about children going up and down the block, sidewalks are an obvious solution. That is what they are for. So I would encourage you to look holistically at the solutions in the community, but also holistically at the solutions for Panmure. They have a real problem, but their solution isn't necessarily the one that we should first grab at. I think privatizing a public road is a very serious thing to do, and if there are ways to accommodate them without privatizing it, we should certainly look very carefully at them. So, you know, I would think that, you know, from a technical legal standpoint, you can put in traffic calming measures. You have that authority as a township. From a technical legal standpoint, there probably was an implied dedication of this road.
There's absolutely no evidence. He's presented no evidence to any of these statements that it's a public
Here she
road.
can
He knows better.
Okay, I understand your objection, and this is just argument. Go ahead. You